See, I was talking about the Tony Iommi stuff, and you know, the reason I know all this stuff, I grew up in England, and I was a lot younger than everyone at the time. I had a guitar lesson from Jimmy Page, a 3-hour guitar lesson, when I was 12. And Jimmy taught me all this stuff, and he told me about the history, and that's how I learned about Tony. That's how I learned all this stuff. I learnt most of it from Jimmy Page, but then there's other things. I've been a guitar tech for 30 years. I've worked with Lou Reed, I've worked with Coldplay, I've worked with Duran Duran, all 3 guitar players. That means Warren Cucurullo, who worked with Zappa. So I've got sort of connections to a lot of different people, and also a lot of techs. You'll be surprised that techs, like myself, know a lot more quite often. The artists are so busy creating, they sometimes forget what tunings they're in, or forget what pedal they used, or forget this, or they don't want to know about the details. But guitar techs, we have to remember all that. When I say guitar techs, I mean all backline technicians. My mate Bob Rice, amazing musician, he does everything really well. Anyway, but I want to get onto this Jimmy Page thing. I've just picked up the guitar. This is Jimmy Page thing. He said to me, pick up the guitar, don't worry about the tuning, wherever it is. Try and sound like you know what you're doing. This is one of Jimmy Page's tips. Play an out-of-tune guitar, try and bend it in. You know, Jeff Beck, that's a Jeff Beck thing. He told me that, Jimmy told me that's what Jeff did. Jeff Beck is things that why you won't sound like Jeff Beck. The first 3 guitars that Jeff Beck owned were what? Okay, the first one he built himself. The fretting was out. The intonation, you forget the intonation, the fretting was out, straight out the gate. He built it wrong with the wrong fretting. We all built guitars. Brian May built his own guitar, him and his dad. My dad and my stepdad put together my first guitar. So we were poor in England, so we built things. This is what people are missing nowadays. They think, oh, you know, about building a guitar, that you need this, you need that. But we built our own in the old days, and there are a lot of things that went on that people have forgotten. And that's just why certain guitars from that era are worth a lot of money. Not because they're you know, got all the trick shit on there. It's because people fiddled with them and did things and actually changed it from the factory settings. Anyway, let me just try and play for a bit, because I don't want to talk, I want to just play for a bit. I had an idea, but now it's completely gone out of my head. See, when you've got a 12 string, you can never bend it in tune because the string gauges are both different. If I get that one in, that one's going to be sharp. If I drop down and get that one in, that one's flat. But if you fudge it with a vibrato, see, what a lot of people don't remember as well is a lot of the blues guys, old blues guys, really old time, they would get a 12 string and they'd leave the top strings all double, but they didn't like the fact that the bass had there was no real balls to it, so they made it into a 9-string guitar. It was a thing that the blues guys did. I saw a documentary on it when I was a kid, and I can't seem to find any information on this since, but I remember watching it, and in this they said that, you know, it was a thing that the blues players, they liked 12-string guitars because they, you know, everyone liked 12 strings in the 70s. Did you notice Jimmy Page used 12 strings everywhere? Stairway to Heaven, you know, all that stuff, you need 12 strings. Lou Reed used 12 strings with Velvet Underground. Everyone was switching over to electric. Remember when Dylan went electric? Well, when they went electric, a lot of folk music was 12 strings. So 12 string electrics, Fender 12s, the X11, the Fender 12s became I mean, Tommy, I think, is written on that. You know, Pete Townsend, everyone wanted 12 string electrics. It was a thing that people have forgotten about, but it came from the old blues. The blues actually were 9-string guitars. They had like the 3 bass strings were normal, E, A, D strings. Now they might not have been in those tunings because most of the blues guys weren't in standard tuning. That's absolutely a given. And this is the thing that a lot of people have missed out on. I know all these tunings. Jimmy Page, I had a 3-hour guitar lesson with Jimmy Page. I'm going to tell a story of it. There were several rooms. I grew up in a place called St. Neots. St. Neots. There's 2 St. Neots in England. Saint, it's named after a saint, St. Neots. Neots is Neots. Neots. St. Neots. Now, apparently this guy was made a saint. He died, I don't know, 300 years before I even lived there. I think it was even longer than that. I don't know about St. Neots. But there are 2 places in England called St. Neots, and there was this whole thing that went around that when he was killed, St. Neot was killed because you got to remember Oliver Cromwell, the Roundheads, all this stuff that was going. There was a lot of weird shit that went on in the old days, and there was a lot of folklore around music and about magic and all sorts of things. So, you know, I grew up in a place that's very, very different to the rest of the world, and that place was Cambridge. Don't forget, Pink Floyd all went to Cambridge College. That's 18 miles away from where I grew up. 1 and 8 is 9. I'm going to keep doing this 1 and 8 is 9 and everything is 369 because it's Tesla. You're not going to get it because most of you are just coming here for you wondering about Jimmy Page and whatever, but this stuff is all super important. If you think it's important, I think it is, no one else does. It doesn't matter. I often see guys say, you know, how do you play the blues? How do you learn to play the blues? Well, the first most important note is obviously the root. I think the flat 7 is the most important next to that because it tells you where it wants to go. It goes. It's a whole lot of love. And people go, well, that whole lot of love's not the blues. It's totally the blues. It's totally the blues. Jimmy Page is so the blues, but he's got other tricks up his sleeve. Jimmy Page was the original Devil's guitar player. What was, you know, that was a rumour that went around, that Jimmy actually sold his soul to the devil. You know, he did all the black magic stuff. He did all the pentagrams on the wall, just like David Bowie did. They all did it. I didn't do that. I never studied the black magic stuff. I just listened to them and I picked it up along the way. I didn't pick up black magic. I just picked up the tunings and all the stuff. And I'm more than willing to like share this with people because I'm old now and I've realised something's for me, and this is only personal, something for me in music is missing. There's great music being created, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to be like that old guy, oh, all the music in my day was great and all the stuff. No, there's some brilliant musicians now, there's great stuff being created, but there's a feeling or something I can't actually, it's factor X or something. There's something that I can't put my finger on, and it's only personal to me. It's not for you, but anyway. So, anyway, I'll go and tell you a story about the Jimmy Page thing. So there was 2 stories that went around St. Neots and Cambridge area. The first one goes like this. There was allegedly a gig where someone famous, it wasn't Burt Yank, but it was someone like a singer-songwriter, it wasn't Bob Dylan, but it was someone pretty good, was doing a gig in Cambridge somewhere. It might have been Cambridge Corn Exchange, or it might have been some fancy pub, a big pub. So what, he wouldn't have been massive at the time. See, things weren't like they were now, with like stadiums and and all the venues established. In the early days, venues could be wherever. You could put you have a promoter put on a gig anywhere. Anyway, so something was happening in Cambridge. There was a singer-songwriter, folk type guy, it might have been Trevor Lucas or someone like that, was meant to be playing somewhere. Apparently Jimmy Page was a big fan of this guy, and the word went out Jimmy Page might show up at the gig, and if he does, sometimes he gets up and plays. Well, I didn't even know Jimmy Page was at the time. I learnt all of this from a guy called John Davis, actually, I think his name was, in town. He was like, oh, Jimmy Page is the best ever. He's like a session guy. He's the best. Like, he went on and on, Jimmy Page. And I was like, who the fuck is Jimmy? I didn't know who Jimmy Page was at all. At the time, I was into T-Rex and lots of country and western stuff. I was doing all the... I was doing all that stuff. I thought it was great. I was doing all country and western, and all that. I can't do it on the 12 string, but I can't do it on here. But I'll do it on the other guitar for you. You'll get what I'm. Over time, if you keep coming back and listening to me rant on about all this stuff, you'll gradually get the whole thing. It's the way I got it all in 3 hours of Jimmy Page. This is how the story went down. Jimmy Page was going to come to this gig, so we all went to this gig, in the hope to see. I think my uncle liked Trevor Lucas or whoever it was. They wanted to see that person anyway. But this John Davis had gone on about Jimmy Page, so I was there because I love guitar players. I love guitar. I was really into whatever it was. And this guy said, you, he pointed at me, poked me on, you need to see this guy. You need to see this guy. Jimmy Page is the best. You need to. So, okay, I get the fucking message. And I hate people poking me. Anyway, so I went to see Jimmy Page. He might not even show up. It's all just a rumour. Anyway, we get there early. We get fucked up with the time. Somehow it's like, oh, it's going to be traffic or whatever. We always do things way over the top. So we get there way early. We get fish and chips and do all sorts of things. The gig's not for ages. So we sort of walk around Cambridge or wherever it is, And someone came up to us because there was a rumour that there was a young boy, a 12-year-old kid, who was a great guitar player. And they came up to it. They thought it was me. It wasn't me, but they thought it was me. And they said to me, my uncle, they said, we hear there's a young guitar player. We need the assistance of this young guy. Jimmy Page has shown up. He's fucked up. He's drunk. He's done 2 bottles of Jack, and he's not in a good shape. We need someone to come and help him, get him go. He can't play. He can't tune any guitars. And so we went. My uncle said, well, he's good at tuning guitars, he can do it for him. So he volunteered me. I go in and meet this drunk guy, who they say is Jimmy Page. Anyway, I start trying to talk to him, and he's really out. I'm like, dude, you got to get it together. It's 3 hours to the gig. You're fucked up. And he's like, I said, okay, well, look, let's just sit him up. Let's get a guitar in his hands. And I start showing him all these different tunings and stuff, which is what the bit that I knew, which was very little. And gradually he starts to come back. Like, I put the guitar and the magic is starting to work, but they also give him this magic powder. There's a magic powder. They chop and they go, go on, Jimmy, and he goes. They put it on a little spoon. That's right. They did it on a fucking pick. I thought it was on a spoon, but it wasn't. It looked like a spoon, but it was a spoon, but with a guitar pick. And they did a guitar pick, and they put one under one nostril. They did another one, and he just went, and then he kept going, and he started to shake a bit, and he's like, and then he started to like come back a little bit, and then I started to show him the tunings. And in those days, I used to do all the theme songs from the TV, all the famous, TV shows. Like, I don't know if this is in the right tuning, but I used to do something like this. Remember, I haven't done this since I'm 12. That's in the key of C, I think. Anyway, Jimmy starts to come back, and I'm starting to do. I do a little bit, and I give him the guitar. I tune it, and I say, and I show him it, and he knows all this stuff. It's Jimmy fucking Page. I didn't know Jimmy Page was. Can you imagine, like, you're 12 years old and you're showing Jimmy Page stuff because you just think he's a drunk idiot. Anyway, this drunk idiot gradually comes back, and he goes to me. He starts telling me all these things about 12 strings, like because he's out under the influence. He's just, you know. They call it the spirits. You're with the spirits, and he's full of spirit, and he's spewing out information. And he goes, "What's that guitar over there?" I said, "That's my guitar. I go everywhere with it." He goes, "Can I have a go on it?" I said, "Yeah, it's in a weird tuning." And he goes, "Don't worry, I know the tunings." And he went, "Oh, it's the fucking the Hendrix tuning where the two E's are just at E flat, everything else is normal." I went, "Yeah. Is that a Hendrix tuning?" He went, "Yeah." You don't know about Hendrix? I was like, who's Hendrix? You know, he's that guy that does Hey Joe. Oh yeah, I like that song. Yeah, I like Hey Joe, and he does that and all this stuff. Anyway, so Jimmy Page starts showing me Hendrix, because see, the session players in those days, they had to know how to play like everybody, not perfectly. But that's the whole point. You don't copy Hendrix perfectly. You don't copy anyone perfectly. You're basically tipping it. Jimmy said, don't ever copy someone. The more you copy, the more you give your soul to them. What you're trying to do is take from them their energy. I said, are you stealing their soul? He said, no. He said, it's like borrowing. You're just borrowing their influence, and you're putting it, you know, you're allowed, you know, because they've put out their wares on display for you, like Hendrix has put it out there. You're allowed to go along and sample some of the goods and bring it into your own heart, and then but you can't just copy, because if you copy, it's now going back to him, and you're diminishing as a see. Players don't get this. They always want to play perfectly like so and so, perfectly like anyone. Who do you want to play like? Like, let's say Django Reinhardt. I love Django Reinhardt. I'd love to play like him. Don't play like, you have to do it with two things. That's what Jimmy said to me. He goes, he said, if you're going to do Django, don't do it with all normal fingers. Django only uses 2 fingers, but you've got to do this pick thing. Now, the other thing Jimmy said to me, and I don't know if this is true, he claimed that everyone said that it's a gypsy stroke that you do, which is a downstroke. But he said to me, Jimmy said to me, that's actually the wrong way. He said, a lot of people got it wrong. Django's actually doing the other way, because when the string is under tension, gravity is pulling it. Everything's under tension, but gravity is holding it. When you pull up, you pull against gravity, and gravity snaps it back, so it's extra fast. If you push down, you're going with gravity, so gravity's already got it. It takes longer to come back. So Jimmy Page said this to me, but my dad told me all this. My dad knew all about physics. He wasn't a physicist. He just could build things, and he just watched the world. And my dad said that to me. He goes, dude, why do you keep doing all this? You're so heavy-handed downstrokes. Why don't you start doing upstrokes? I said, what do you mean? He goes, you'll play so much faster. I said, that's ridiculous. It feels really awkward going up. He goes, because it feels awkward. You're going against gravity. Anyway, so I'm getting off the thing. So there was this 12-year-old kid. I got called in to do it. Except I don't think I did. I mean, I'm just making this whole thing up. Except I don't think I am making it up. There are 2 stories. One goes like this. Jimmy was so drunk that they got the 12-year-old kid in, and the kid tried his best to get Jimmy. They got him out on the bar stool, on a bar stool, and he was playing, but we couldn't get him back, and he kept falling over. And I was there as his guitar tech, like doing the tunings at 12 years old, doing the tune. And people realised in between, I would start tuning and doing all these little tunes, and they were going, oh wow, he's doing all the stuff that Jimmy can do, but Jimmy's too fucked up. That's one story that went around the Cambridge area. The other one went around like this. There was a 12-year-old kid that went back and schooled Jimmy Page. Didn't school him, he just got him, they gave him, I learnt later it was cocaine. They gave him loads of cocaine, and he came, and it brought him back. And he was, and Jimmy went out there and just absolutely slayed. Everyone always says, oh, Jimmy's sloppy. He's not sloppy. When Jimmy's doing anything, See, what you're looking at is you want to see a photograph where everything's perfect, but Jimmy is like Picasso. He's doing little sketches of things. So what you think is just like, oh, it's because he's showing you it's an artist's impression of what he's doing. He's giving you, Jimmy Page is so misunderstood. Mainly by me, I feel. For most of my life, I was one of those guys thinking, oh, he's scrappy, he's this, he's that. But now I've actually grown to really like Jimmy Page, because like I said, this whole thing, the Jimmy Page lesson that I had with him, 3 hours spent with a man, and I suddenly realised, but then I'd forgotten all this stuff. They made me forget. Everyone made me forget. They used to say, oh, you got to put, one finger per fret. I was forced into that. My fingers don't actually do that. My fingers 4 go into 3 with me, and that's where they're comfortable. And I used to play as a kid. I was really comfortable. And to do 4, I've got to open them up more. Well, the more you open up, you start ending up doing that Alan Holdsworth thing, which at first feels uncomfortable, but I guess you kind of get used to it. But for me, I just always wanted my fingers all together, because I wanted to bend all the time. Now, I'm just trying to give you really radical examples. It's not musical at the minute. I'm just showing you the mechanics of how my hands would work as a kid, and how I used to think. I was only using 2 fingers there. See, that was Django in it. Sometimes I play the whole thing with 1 finger. Well, the other ones are doing the B.B. King. You use the other ones as a counterweight to do that. Anyway, there's loads of stuff I can teach you. But you've got to be prepared for me to just be awful. And remember, it's like I'm a 12-year-old kid. Well, I ranged from 6 years old. That's when I first got the 12 string. I only had probably an hour on a 12 string when I was 6 years old, and I figured out loads of stuff. Then I got to 12, like between 6 and 12, I played a little bit, and at 9 years old, I picked up the guitar and realised I could make girls laugh by doing T-Rex impersonation. I couldn't play, but I could look. I had the hair. I backcombed my hair. I could do all the, pouting, all that shit. I could totally do it at fucking 9. I had it down. And I realised that once you made the girls laugh, I thought, all I've got to do is be able to play the rhythm, and they'll dance. And if girls dance and they laugh, when I say girls, they were young girls. We were all we 9 years old. But young girls are just like women. Women and girls are the same thing. Even women, when they're old, if you make them laugh, and you can get them to dance, or even make them smile. If you do anything to make a woman feel better, and dancing makes women feel better, and smiling definitely makes everybody feel better. That's not a woman thing, that's a universe. If you make anyone smile or laugh, you're making them feel better, you're making their health improve. Anyway, I aim to keep doing these rants and claim that they're guitar lessons. Most of you are going to be really pissed off. I can see by the comments, oh, that is a waste of my time, blah, blah, blah. Well, for some of you, this is not going to be the way to teach. It doesn't mean it's... But other people write and say, oh my God, that's the best lesson ever, or my mind was blown. So clearly we're all different. So I'm hoping that I can get, there's loads of people. Rick Beato can teach you everything. Rick Beato's 62, I'm 62, born in 62. But we're very different. I've learned from Rick Beato a real lot. There's loads of guys out there. Paul Gilbert can teach you to shred. Anyone, you can find anyone out there that can teach you what you want to know. But the thing is, what people have forgotten is they see everyone's compartmentalising. I just want to shred, that's all I want to do. I just want to do the blues, that's all I want to do. Well, in the old days, that's not what you did. You did everything. Jimmy Page, that's his rule number 1. Play for the song, play for the situation. See, it's not just always the song. You always think, oh, he's talking about the song remains the same, Stairway to Heaven. No, Jimmy Page would do jingles. If he did a jingle, he did the jingle with as much spirit and heart and originality as he did anything. He played for the music. The music may be throwaway, cheesy pieces of shit, but that doesn't mean that you have to just disregard it as being that. You try and do, and that's why all those old adverts and old TV theme tunes were so good. because people, they knew what they were trying to hit a certain market, but they're still trying to be very creative. That, I think, is part of what's been lost. Anyway, this has been a great rant. I think this is too long, but let me know in the comments what you think. I can do Russell Brand. I might not have a beard. I might not look like Jesus. I don't have tattoos everywhere, but I can teach you some guitar.